Welcome. This is Method Marketing and I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. A month ago, I got a mystery package in the mail. A colleague had sent me a surprise gift to say thank you for a referral. It was a box of beautifully packaged dehydrated fruit from a company called Little Beauties. The packaging looked gorgeous, the fruit inside tasted the same, and I wanted to find out more about this Nelson company. They sell Feijoa, which is a fruit known for its short season, so it was great to see it in something that had a bit of a longer shelf life. And the Gold Kiwifruit was dipped in chocolate, which was a bit of a win for me. Thankfully, Tristan Wastney, the co-founder of Little Beauties, agreed to be on the show. Tristan now oversees the sales and marketing and helps arrange the exporting into the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Taiwan, Singapore, Japan, and new markets on the horizon. This Kiwi family-run business has grown to employ a team, developed some pretty incredible machinery, and become a sustainable method of using fruit otherwise designed for landfill. In this podcast, Tristan's going to share with us the story of how the business began, where it's sitting at the moment, and where he and his family believe it should go. We also talked about the cost of growth, the impact of going into supermarkets, and what it takes to create a brand that will become known on a world stage. For those of you that have got businesses that are not at that stage yet, let me reassure you, Tristan still goes to the Nelson markets every week and sells there, and that's where they began. Humble beginnings and going from there to a world stage is possible, is doable, if you know what you need to count the cost of and what you need to do to make it happen. I'm really looking forward to sharing this podcast with you today with Tristan and finding out a bit more about Little Beauties and how they are taking over the world with New Zealand fruit. Hi and welcome to Method Marketing. I'm so excited today to have Tristan Wastney today with us. He is are you the co-owner or part owner of Little Beauties?
Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders.
Fantastic.
Director as well. Yep.
Fantastic. And he's going to come and talk to us today about what it's like to have a business that has a sustainable focus, an FMCG business, and how to grow that brand in really quite a competitive market. Food and beauty and all those different markets are so saturated, and yet this is a business that's really shining out and showing their point of difference. Plus, it's a Nelson company, and I love companies that are based in Nelson. Slight bias, I think. So he's going to come and share with us. Now, before he does, when we talk about these things, if you do want to come and talk about this podcast, do come and be part of the Method Marketing Facebook group and ask questions in there. And just a nice little plug there too, if you'd like to join in for the free giveaway I've got for my new book coming out in June. I think this is the last week to enter that. You can do that on the download link there too in the show notes. Right, without further ado, Tristan, welcome so much to the show. It's so nice to have you here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's I always love connecting with like-minded people, so it's great.
Yeah, it's always exciting. It's exciting to see cool businesses too. And I shared in the intro, but I had already seen your product but never bought it, and then someone gave it to me as a gift, and now I'm converted. They're really great to have as emergency kind of snack packs, especially like in the car and things like that where you're stuck somewhere. And they're also great for that kind of midwinter pick-me-up when the summer fruits have all gone, which I think is great. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Little Beauties and how it came about and why it's different to other things on the market too? That's a bit of a scary question to ask you right first. Right?
Yeah, it is a bit, but no, that's all good. Okay, so I'll try and wrap this up relatively quickly because it's quite a long story, I guess, how we all got started. But we basically, my dad, myself, and my brother, and obviously my mum's been heavily involved over the years. We were on a dairy farm, ex-dairy farm. We started growing a whole bunch of Feijoa trees, and for some reason, basically because my dad loves Feijoas.
Me too. I totally get it. And they make a lot of Feijoas. Like I've only got 1-2 trees, and it's more than our family can handle.
Oh, that's right. So we planted around 1,100 trees.
Okay, yeah, he definitely likes them.
Yeah, he definitely likes them. He's obsessed with them. So, And at the time, we were looking at Dad going, what are you doing? It's not a good commercial fruit to grow, really. They only you can harvest them for sort of 6 to 10 weeks of the year, depending on what varieties. And you don't get paid much for them. And they're quite a fickle fruit to harvest because you have to touch pick them. So as soon as they fall on the ground, they're classed as a processed fruit and basically gets left on the ground. It's most growers struggle to find a market for that fruit.
Wow. No, okay. So first, that is super interesting to me because when they drop, they're ripe, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the thing with Feijoas is that they've got no shelf life. So
yes, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, so they only last as soon as there's like a very sharp curve of ripeness. So they sort of they're not ripe. They get to this point where they're perfect, and then they just go rotten.
Like an avocado. Our
like an avocado.
New Zealand fruit. Feijoas and avocado are two things that we love.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So I guess, so we've got all these fruit trees. I was, at the time, my background's in agriculture, and I was overseeing a couple of big dairy farms here in the region. My brother, who's also been very involved, he's a co-founder too. He's running a design team agency in Hamilton. So we're very, very busy. And we're looking at what Dad's doing, and Dad's like, well, I want to grow a fruit. I want to make this small block of land that we have left in the family profitable for the family. So hopefully all the children and things, there's something here when I die. So that was the ultimate goal for my dad, was how do I add value to the land? How do I give back to the family to try and keep this in the family? So that's basically where it started. And so we, at the time, my brother was actually based in New York, and we're sort of a fruit drying family. We've always been drying fruit and dehydrated.
Dehydrator?
We've got 5 kids. It's 5 kids in our family, so mum and dad were always struggling to keep us fed for school lunches and things. So it was always going back to the orchard, the family orchard on the farm, and just we had plum trees, pear trees, apple trees.
You're totally buying into the whole Nelson, like the typical Nelson family right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're really blessed here in Nelson. It's a great place for growing fruit, right? So so he was sending this. He was basically peeling these Feijoas like we've always done, right from kids, slicing them up, put them in these dehydrators, and he was packaging them up and sending them to my brother, who was madly craving Feijoas because he couldn't get them over in New York. He'd been based there for about 3 years, him and his wife. And from that point, like there's a lot of expats over there that he was working with and connected with. And they were like, oh man, hook me some up with those Feijoas. So I haven't had them for years. And they're like, these are so good. Have you guys thought about, like, you guys need to select a brand on these little packs that you're sending us? Share these with the rest of the world because they're amazing. So we thought, hey, actually, that's a good idea. We're having no idea on how to scale a Feijoa product. So Dad sort of went back to the drawing board and thought, okay, what do we do if we want to really add value to every piece of fruit on our land? And so it all started from there. We built like a little custom dryer out of a fridge. And the little dehydrators we had were obviously too small. And we had a little bench top hand peeler. So you put a piece of fruit in and you sort of peel like this, and it peels the fruit, and then slicing it by hand, and we're manually doing everything. And so Dad was doing that. Him and my wife actually was heavily involved at the beginning, helping him just make the stuff. And he was selling them at a farmer's market, and all of a sudden it was getting a lot of great feedback. And that was the only product we had. We just had some dried Feijoa sauces. And so at that time, my brother, who specializes in brand design and things, said, hey, well, let's come up with a cool brand name, something that's really iconic to New Zealand. We wanted to be the leader for Feijoas in New Zealand. We want to be known for doing something cool with Feijoas, just because we're passionate about the fruit, and it kind of, to help support the co-op that we were supplying and things like that. So that's where it all started. At the time, I was feeding a lot of Gold Kiwifruit to our cows on all the farms I was managing. And I was getting this fruit for nothing. Literally, it was for free. It was just costing me the freight to get it there. And I was feeding over 100 ton of this stuff.
Wow.
And it just always really amazed me by how good the fruit was and why I was getting it for free. I was like, this is crazy. So just to give your audience a bit of a feel for the level of the volume of waste that's happening here in New Zealand. And it's of no fault to tented growers or zestberry or anything like that. It's just the nature of how big that industry is. And the waste stream for them is actually if you look at the percentages, it's very small. We're talking, 2 to 4% of the total gold kiwifruit grown in New Zealand.
When it's a huge market, that's a huge amount, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So just to give you an example, so Nelson grows under 5% of the total gold kiwifruit here in New Zealand. And we, and out of that under 5%, we get roughly 3% of that of the third grade fruit, which is essentially ending up in landfill. So that's anything that's got a blemish or not the right shape. The fruit inside is exactly the same. There's no difference. It's the same as what they're exporting as a premium. So, and that we've got access to close to half, like 500 tonne of that fruit just in Nelson, and we grow less than 5% in all of New Zealand. So you can imagine the sheer volume of fruit that gets put on dairy farms and fed to cows, which is great. At least they're finding a home for some of it, but a lot of it is ending up in landfill because it's just the sheer number is a struggle to deal with through the peak of the gold kiwifruit season.
It is partly though this weird thing, isn't it? Because I know years ago I was working with a client and he had this machine that was a sorter for apples, and they were going to use it and change it for something else. But this quest for the perfect size and the perfect shape and the perfect way it looks over whether it's actually a viable food source is quite incredible, isn't it? Like we have moved from, hey, this awesome apple, which is like half the size of this apple and it's a weird shape, but I picked it straight from a tree and it still tastes delicious, to everything used to be uniform in the same size is kind of crazy.
Oh, it is. And it's wrong. It's no good for our environment. It's no good for the growers. And it's not good for the consumers either. They're paying a high price for a fruit that they could get cheaper if you were to utilize some of that fruit.
Well, I know I'm interrupting you because I'm loving the story, and I'm like, this is so interesting because I lived in Taiwan for a while, and I used to live in North Canterbury and North Logan, and there's lots of orchards there, and I used to go and get my apples from the orchards and other fruit. And I was in this deli in Taiwan, and it was New Zealand apples, and they were from the same orchard that I had been going to, but they were the export quality apples. And I suddenly went, wow, this is like they were like 4 times the size. Like these were these huge meal apples. And I was like, it is interesting. New Zealanders don't see this, because often even like the fruit we get in shops isn't always even that AA plus grade or whatever they're going to grade it as.
Fruit,
right?
It's normally the second grade that we see here in New Zealand supermarkets. And obviously you're still paying a premium price for it.
Yes.
Which is another bit of a hate of mine. But so I guess overall for us, it was like, okay, I guess we moved forward 5 years of us developing the Feijoa product and trying to figure out how the heck do we scale this product? We can't physically peel every individual Feijoa and slice each Feijoa. What a nightmare that is. So we started investigating, okay, there's got to be some peeling equipment out there that can do this on scale. Turns out there isn't. Nothing. Well, there's peeling machines, there's slicing machines, but there's nothing that a piece of fruit where you feed into a machine, peels it, top and tails it, slices it, laser slices on trays, and then loads those trays onto trolleys into our dryers. We needed to automate that process because it's incredibly labor intensive. So for example, if we wanted to do 100 tonne of gold kiwifruit or something like that, which is it's quite a bit of fruit, but it's nothing in the scheme. We're not making any impact at all, really, even doing 100 tonne.
It's crazy.
So we would need around 80 staff for 10 hours a day manually putting slices on trays.
And the labor cost of that would just have to go on top of whatever you're pricing, right? Like it just would not make the food.
It makes it completely unviable.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started, and was very, very manual. And so I had 6 people every day putting slices on trays, and we had a small team, and we bought some peeling equipment from China, which we've had to strip down and rebuild. It was all in Chinese, so it was a nightmare, the electronics and things trying to do it. But we've got some great minds in our company, and my dad's best mates are one of those 1 in a million engineers that it's all in his head, doesn't write a thing down, but he can just go in there and fix and build anything. So he's actually helped us custom build our own dryers and adapt these peelers. So from there, these peelers still weren't really doing the job. We're still, how do we solve the laying the slices on trays? How do we we solve that problem so we can actually scale this thing and make a difference? So we basically had to go out and design and build our own piece of equipment, a machine technology that will do this process. So that's what we've done. We went out and we got a grant through Callens. They funded 40% of it. And we spent 3 years designing and building this world first piece of kit that would do this process. So we launched the machine last year. The goal was to have one person feeding fruit at one end and pushing trolleys into our dryers at the other, and doing one piece of fruit a second, which is what we had to get to make this viable. So as you can imagine, every piece of fruit is a different shape and size and firmness. So how do you pick that piece of fruit up? How do you top it? How do you peel it? How do you lay the slice on a tray? And then how do you automatically load those trays onto a trolley when you've got 150 trays per trolley? So we've used robotics. So for example, we've got a robotic arm now catching the slices and then loading them onto the trolleys.
So clever.
We've got this piece of kit is amazing, and it's a world first machine. We're still proving it, but this year we're launching the version 2. We've doubled the size of the thing, and we think we can get it down to one piece of fruit a second. It seems to be working well so far with our trials. So we launched that in 2 weeks. So we're all very nervous to see how it's going to go. So if you move forward sort of 6 years from when we first started, I was obviously, both my brother and I were still flat out in our 70 hours a week doing our own jobs. And when I was traveling to other farms and things, I was on the way, I'd stop into a supermarket and try and get us in there. So it was that sort of thing. We're all sort of working together to try and, so I was right from the beginning, I've been doing sales, not really knowing what I'm doing, just trying to get these products that no one's ever heard of sold into a supermarket shelf, not understanding the price point, not understanding the value proposition that I'm offering to the buyers, and having no real understanding of who our customer is or where it should sit on shelf. So that whole process has taken us about 2 to 3 years to understand and get right. And it's taken a couple of goes, and it's cost us a lot of money just through us not knowing what you don't know until you start doing it, right? So my brother and I ended up going to China. We thought, everyone thinks Asia's the place to go. They love Gold Kiwifruit. Feijoa is always going to be a hard thing to sell outside New Zealand, but we quickly saw that there was a huge gap in the market around dealing with this waste stream. And Gold Kiwifruit, they're a lot easier to store. You can process them over 4 to 5 months. Whereas Feijoa, you've got to do it all from fresh, and it's you only got 6 weeks to do a whole year supply. It's very, very hard. It's very fickle fruit to sort of process. Hence why no one's doing it. No money in it. It's still cost. Exactly. So most people think we're absolutely mad doing what we're doing, but we don't care. We like to be different, and we think the whole route to traditional route to market into bricks and mortar is completely broken. Too many people clipping the ticket. The supermarket is completely dominating how the producers can afford to even run. It's the whole thing's disgusting and it's broken, and we just didn't want to go down that channel.
So are you in stores, or any stores, or not, like independent stores, or have you just gone, actually we've done it for a couple of years or tried it, we're actually going to opt out and just focus on direct to consumer? So that was our initial
sort of thing. So we initially were like, we didn't know much about direct to consumer. I didn't even have a website at the time. This is only going back 3 years. And this is prior to COVID, so things were a lot different.
Yes.
And so I guess if we just step back a bit from that, I mean, we were getting into supermarkets like everybody else, thinking that's the best route to go, because we didn't know there was any other way. We thought, okay, we've got to prove the model in New Zealand. We know exporters want to see that we're selling in supermarkets, price point, and
it's social proof, right? It's showing that you can do big enough orders. I've worked with other businesses where they've been prohibited going into supermarkets because the supermarket goes, great, I want this many, and they're going, well, we can't actually provide that. So the fact that exporters are going to want to see that you can create enough product to keep on going. So that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely. It's a big part of it. So that was our thinking at the time. So we started getting into supermarkets. I employed a couple of reps to give me a hand. And I was doing this on the side, and poor old dad was at home trying to figure out how to do POE on Zero. And he's a farmer. It's the last thing just a bit clunky on the old computer.
Yeah, it's pretty
nightmare.
rough.
So he was calling me up at 10:30 at night. Oh, Tristan, give me a hand with PAYE. And so I was like, this is a nightmare. We can't run this business like this. So
no.
And these are all the typical startup stuff. We're just doing everything ourselves, and it was very, very challenging. And
plus, you were still working, right? Like you still had a full-time job.
Yeah. So I was managing 2 big dairy farms, and we have Oakland's Milk here in Nelson, where we pasteurize our own milk. We have our own factory and bottle and deliver. And so I was overseeing all of that. And it's
so it wasn't like you had like a whole lot of time as well.
Had very limited time. So I was more governance and said, look, I'll get you guys into food stuff. So I had I'm good at building relationships, and I thought, I can do that piece. And because I was involved, and that was a startup with the dairy business, so I had a really good understanding of what scale looks like. It took us 6 years to scale that business from scratch, and the sheer cost to do that is millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I knew that's what it was going to look like. We all did right from the start, and we said, okay, well, we probably know we're only going to end up with 10% equity share of this business to get it to where we need to. But hey, that doesn't matter if we can have an impact, and we can. We'd much rather have a small piece of the pie than have 90% of it or 100% of a pie that doesn't generate any real revenue or I say profit and actually make a good impact.
Because I think I'm this is so interesting, but I think one of the things you've said here, which is really interesting with this, is that this isn't regardless of the fact that it's clever, regardless of the fact that it's New Zealand made and that it's got huge options for export and all those things. At the base of this is an impact-based business. This is a business that's actually helping reduce food waste in a way that people can actually access that food that would otherwise have either gone to cows, which is a way of doing it, or would have gone straight to just the rubbish bins, right?
Yeah, well, it goes into landfill. Yeah.
So, and landfill isn't even great. Like, that's not even like going back into planting so you can have like beautiful things. That's like at the rubbish tip.
Yeah, well, it's a major problem for zestberry, because what happens is it starts creating this wild vine, which then creates diseases, which is very, very hard to manage. So it's a big, big issue, especially as zestberry are growing. I mean, they've estimated a 4 times growth over the next 3 years. So it's only going to get worse. And no one's found a solution for this. So, and Gold Kiwifruit is the most nutritious fruit on the planet.
It's so delicious.
It's just insane, the nutritional benefits that come from Gold Kiwifruit. It's remarkable. Vitamin C, potassium, B vitamins.
Same with Feijoas though. Like I think I read somewhere like 2 Feijoas pretty much gives you most of your vitamin C for the day.
Yeah,
they're crazy.
They're very high in potassium, high in folates, high in iodine. They're just a great fruit, especially for pregnant women. If you're pregnant, then eat lots of Feijoas, because the iodine's really good for you.
And and in terms of it, like, because I was going to ask this, with the dehydration process, does it keep those nutrients in the fruit, or does it kill them?
No, it actually it concentrates the nutrients.
Wow. Okay.
So if you said 20 grams of fresh versus 20 grams of dried, there's about 10 times more. And so just to give you listeners another little fun fact. So when you're drying fruit, it's incredibly expensive to remove water. So for every 100 kilos we put into our of fresh that we put into our dries, we get about 7% back in actual product. So we get 7 kilos back.
Wow.
So we've got to dry.
Wow, that's a lot of fruit.
So it's concentrated by about 10 times. So, for example, that little 50-gram packet of Gold Kiwifruit slices there's equivalent to 4 to 5 whole Gold Kiwifruit in there.
That's crazy. Well, you can tell, like, you can actually tell that, like, I've got a packet here for those of you that are just listening. It is like a little packet, and it's a servings of 2. But actually, I would struggle to eat. I mean, in some ways, if you're snacky, you can eat the whole thing. But actually, when you eat like probably a quarter of that, you kind of feel like you've had enough, because essentially that's like a couple of kiwi fruits. So
exactly, yeah. And so one of those packets is about 4 times your daily intake of vitamin C. So you don't need much to get what you need. To get your daily intake of vitamin C and potassium as well. So it's great. It's a superfood, right? So I'm going off on a few different tangents here, eh?
It's good. I warned you. I did say. So can I ask a question, because I'm quite interested about it? So we'll go back to export in a minute. But one of the things I noticed when I was on your website is that you also supply like kilogram or more bigger lots. Are those for manufacturers who are wanting to put dehydrated food into their like mueslis and things like that? Because I had a feeling that might be why it was for what it was for.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So where we are right now as a company, and again, we're all about how do we make an impact? How do we improve the planet? How do we improve the livelihoods of our community? You know, so everyone that we employ, you know, we've got these strong values for Little Beauties that comes from our values growing up as in our family, and so we want to pay everyone a living wage. We want everybody to come to work and love what they're doing and be part of this movement, which is leave no fruit left unpicked.
It's like, so, you know, yeah, I love that. That's a great saying.
Yeah, well, look, we're growers ourselves, you know, and we've seen it from us. So we can relate with all the other growers. We want to add value over the course of, if you think of the dried fruit category as a whole, it's a pretty boring category. It hasn't really changed for the last 50 years. I mean, the closest we came to
dried apricots.
Dried apricots, dates, prunes, raisins. That's kind of what you think, and it all gets classed in that sort of baking sort of type section, and it's not really a snacking. I mean, you do snack, but you might put some on a snacking board or something like that. But so because of that, it becomes a commodity, and if you strip it right down, people that are buying that stuff, like all the large distributors and things, supermarkets, they're not going to New Zealand to buy it because it's too expensive. They go to Chile or Serbia. So if you think raspberries, boysenberries, for example, the local growers can't compete. They get completely undercut by these big players here in New Zealand supplying the market to get it as cheaply as possible, and it becomes a commodity, which is a real shame because the fruit that we grow here in New Zealand is the best fruit, in my view, in the world.
Incredible.
For the same reason that we had the best wine in the world. You know, we've got great sunshine, we've got great soils. It's just an amazing climate for doing this stuff. So the whole thing for us is how do we make this dried fruit category exciting? How do we turn it from a commodity into a non-commodity? We're never going to be a volume player here in New Zealand. So why are we competing with the volume players? We need to be a quality player and really add value as much as possible. So for us to do that, we can't just sell a price in a snack bag. We have to be able to look at every use of the fruit, so the skins, the seeds. So what we now, and this has kind of evolved over the life of Little Beauties. We had no idea we'd be doing this stuff 3 years out, which is more in the ingredient space. So we're now kind of competing with lots of fresh airs because we've got a waste stream of a waste stream. So all our skins that we peel, I'm doing 25 ton a week of skin, and on that skin there's still some good flesh on there. There's a lot of value in that fruit. So what we're now doing is we're squeezing all the last little bit of juice that we get out of those skins, and we're now spray drying that juice and creating a beautiful dissolvable 100% powder. So that can be put into pet food. It can be put into music bars, collagen powders, or whatever it is. And we're able to do that across all our fruits. Now it's a purees, concentrates. So then, you know, that's amazing because it's got the flavor, it's got the nutrition, and it's also cutting down on the huge supply chain issue, especially driven by COVID now, with these big companies not being able to source the purees and powders that they want. So they're now going to their back doorstep. And that's also driven largely by millennials who globally is kind of driving this snacking market, just the FMCG market. They want to know, where is this fruit coming from?
Yeah.
You know, are these guys sustainable? You know, what's their following on? They're jumping around Google. Are they on Amazon? Are they on Woolworths? Are they what's their organic social like? You know, who are they? They want to get behind the brand and see if their values align with ours. And then, you know, that's just the new mindset of how most of the people buying our products are thinking.
I so agree with that, because I know, and I've said this before on this podcast many times, but if I go to a website and I can't see the story and resonate with the story and see the people who are making it, I won't buy from them, because I don't want faceless products. I don't want to buy a product and find that it was actually secretly owned by a big factory in Wirri, pretending to be a small, beautiful business, and even though your business potentially could go very, very large, the fact that it's family owned makes it something that I want to connect with.
Yeah, I think there's something really powerful with that. And it's like we're set up in the US, so we're exporting to the US, we're exporting to Australia, exporting to Japan, Taiwan. I'm now working in Vietnam.
That's amazing.
And that's just a general theme. And I guess this is where the direct to consumer piece comes in, and how crucial that is. And for us as a company, like we've got New Zealand's a small place. We've only got 5.5 million people. Our products are really niche. It's relatively expensive. It's a luxury item.
It's a small market in New Zealand, really, isn't it? And also New Zealanders don't appreciate, because we can eat fresh kiwi fruit and fresh Feijoas, and even though it's short, we don't actually appreciate the hard work that goes into dehydration. Either do we?
Look,
we don't appreciate it.
Yeah, people have no idea the level of work that goes into putting the product looks simple, and it's just some dry fruit in a bag. But the work that goes into getting that product in a bag and sold is just insane. And this has been a massive learning curve for us as well. And like we're still we're probably still 12 months away from even being profitable. So we've had to raise a lot of money. We've raised just under 5 million in the last 2 years. And we're in the midst of another $4 million capital raise to try and keep things going, because we've got all the fruit that we purchase is generally in that first 3 to 6 months of the year. And that so we've got to predict, what do we think we can sell over the next 12 months?
That's hard.
And we have to buy all that fruit, support these growers and commit to it. Store the fruit, cold store it through, some of it's been frozen, some we're storing ourselves in our cold store, and which is all, you've got all these upfront costs, and you've got to process all this stuff.
Plus all the amazing way that you've had to do to create your robotics and your machinery and all those sort of things. And, we talked about before, it's very different selling in a market where you can kind of control and do like a little bit every week and those sort of things, to, hey, I would like to have, 4 tons of your product ready to ship, or a container full. Like those are two very different situations.
Yeah. Oh, look, and that was the conundrum. It's catch-22, right? We're too small to be able to supply a container if we got an order. But at the same time, we really needed that order to be able to scale. So you've got this, and we can't afford to do any of it. So we're kind of like, how are we going to grow this thing? And that's why we realized that, hey, we need to get out in the market. We need to find what are our key pillars that are point of difference that's really going to add value, to try and pull some of this investment in. And we've just been, if I'm honest, I think having strong values as a company and having good minds around has probably been the most important piece for us to drive investment. And finding investors that share those same values, where they're not, we've got a 50-year plan. We're in this for the long game. We're not pissing about. And so it's finding investors that want to join that plan, that strategy, and they believe in what we're doing and they can see that value. I think for us, we've always thought global. We know that to really make an impact to our growers here in New Zealand, we've got to go global. We've got to tell that story. We've got to push that message, which is probably the hardest thing to do from a marketing perspective. And I'm head of marketing. That's my main. Well, I'm head of marketing and sales, so wear these 2 different hats. And I'm also doing all the logistics into the US, which is a nightmare. It's not a fun job.
No.
I try and make it fun, but it's just not. I've dealt with at the moment I'm dealing with 2 big insurance claims where 2 of our pallets, chocolate skews, got left on the tarmac for 4 hours in LA. That's 50 grams worth of product just stuck in 4 hours, and that's after we filled it with dry ice and wrapped them and the whole thing, and just air freighting stock over.
Huge expensive
to start. So
okay, can I ask a question about the organic social media? Because you've obviously said you're in charge of marketing, and obviously with your brother's help, the branding's beautiful. Like Little Beauties is gorgeous. The way the packaging looks is amazing, and I think that is really important in terms of that kind of pick up the shelf and want to buy it. But in terms of the organic social media, what has been kind of challenges or things that have surprised you by having to grow that? And what have you had to do? Like, what are some stuff that you've had to do that you didn't think you'd have to do?
Yeah,
that's 7 questions.
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do I start there? So if I strip this back from 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we had, my brother set up an Instagram account. It was probably about 8 years old, and we had maybe 6 images on there and maybe under 100 followers. And I don't know, I'm an ex-dairy farmer, right? I've spent the last 16 years on the land, in a lot of farms that have no reception. I had no interest in Facebook or Instagram.
So jealous.
So I'm coming in completely green here, not having a clue about how organic social works. And I didn't want to really do anything. It's just not, I'm not that person. I'm not the guy that is engaging on Instagram or Facebook. So that was really, really hard for me to sort of initially pick up and understand how they work. But I knew that what led me to be like, man, we really need to start telling our story through this platform and start communicating with our customers was largely from farmers markets. So when I first I stopped, I realized that, holy shit, I need to come on board and be full-time in this business to really help grow the sales and get this thing moving. So when I came on board, I was like, well, how are we going to do this? We're getting good sales at the market. We're talking direct to consumer. They get to taste the product. We know that 90% of the people that are coming to us at the stand, one, they're asking me all these questions about the product and us as a company and as people, as humans. And then they walk away with product. Like, and if I hadn't stopped, if I had said, hey, yo, do you want to come over and try a sample? They were just walking.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, there's something in this. Like, we know that when people try the product, they buy it. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, some days we're doing $1,000 an hour at the market. So I set up 5 markets throughout New Zealand initially, just before COVID. And it was going really well. It was great. And from that, we were landing a lot of B2B wholesalers because they're like, they'd go to these markets and try it and be like, man, we want this product. So there was a way for us to go direct rather than having to go through a broker or go through distributors. And you know, farmers markets, probably 60% of them are tourists coming from US, coming from EU, UK. Yeah. So
it's a good way to kind of get the international feel. Like, is this going to hit international?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's the best place. It really is. I mean, that's what's grown Little Beauties from this at the very start with these farmers markets and being able to network and connect. We actually picked up one of our big investors through a farmers market, and that was him just going along, trying the product, going, "Holy shit, this is awesome! What are you guys doing?" I love that.
Because I actually bought Pix peanut butter before anyone really even knew, before it was in things, from a Takapuna farmers market, like maybe in the first year that he was operating, using that same structure. And you know, it does, like, you know, COVID's really basically shat all over that. But you know, those farmers markets for people, it is a viable place to test it, check your price points, get feedback, get that loop. For those people that are at that stage, don't feel like ashamed or feel like that's a weird way to do it. It is really good market validation, isn't it? Like, it's so important.
It's the best market validation, right? Because you're getting across every demographic. The sheer number of people we're so fortunate here in Nelson. The Nelson market is.
I love the Nelson market.
It's the best market in the country. It really is.
It's an awesome market.
So we're just so fortunate to have this great market, and it's still great to this day. It's we're just not getting the overseas. You know, it's down 50% because we're just not seeing those. So we still go to the market every single weekend. We're actually committed to supporting our locals, and we do a really good special with those guys. We don't make any money, but it's an opportunity for us to. Support our community and chat and get out there and keep doing what we're doing. But so I guess as far as organic social, it's like, okay, how do I replicate the farmers market online? How do we do that? And how do we get the message and the story and all that sort of stuff? So, and obviously that's when you dive into shit. I need an agency now to manage this stuff. They know all the key pillars. They know the correct tone of voice to get our brand across. I'm not a copywriter. How do we produce the content? You know, I don't have time to be pissing about trying to take all these little videos on my phone and figure all this stuff out on my own. So at the time when I first started doing these markets, a really good friend of mine, well, he's become one of my best mates, is a videographer and photographer. And he happened to be, I just finished building my first home, and he came to do some photography for the builder. And we got chatting. And I said, mate, do you want to do some photography for me? Because I badly need to get something up on Instagram. And that's where our marketing journey together has started. And so we started trying doing things differently. We need to get dried fruit, make it exciting. How do we stop that scroll? And so we thought, okay, we need to I want products bursting out of the packet. So how do you do that? oh shit, we need to find something that's going to throw the product in the air. And it was like, oh man, we need a camera that can then capture that frame. And so we started breaking it all down, and to the point where I literally built a catapult to throw fruit in the air.
I love it.
And then so we were like, okay, well, we've built this catapult now, and it works awesome. It runs on air pressure, and I got my engineers that building helping us build this peeling kit to design and build something for us really cheaply, and it worked awesome. And I was like, okay, for this to go right, I need Jacinda to come and fire this. So when Jacinda was coming down elections, we managed to get some product to Winston Peters. He handed it to Jacinda, and anyway, she took it and she's like, guys, I'm coming down. And at the time, we were working with Pix Peanut Butter at his food factory. We're doing some of our packaging there. So we set up shop there with this catapult, and all the lighting and the filming and everything. It looked awesome. She came down and fired it. We managed to get it down.
Awesome.
And that's kind of set us on a journey. Like, man, we can do this. Like, we can do this ourselves. I don't need to pay an agency $5,000 a month to produce a basic set of images and a crappy story video. We can really
think owner stories are always better. Like, I think, like we overstress that an agency is needed, but actually an owner's story and an owner's insight, like, you can even with an agency, if they're not coming back and asking for all of that, so the time, so you're still having to give that time. If you're not doing it, it's not going to feed the growth that you need.
Oh, exactly.
With millennials or your target market.
The biggest issue in this country, well, globally, is, especially in New Zealand, is that this stuff is very unregulated. And since COVID, the problem is no one knows anything about e-commerce. No one knows how to do email strategy. No one knows SMS. No one knows how to go out and produce content, the right type of content, produce the copy, do organic social, manage all the inventory, manage dispatch, compliance, all the stuff that goes with it.
Such a big job.
There's so many moving parts, and it was like, well, what do I spend money on? What's going to give me a return? And marketing is a hard thing. It's very hard. There's so many predisposing factors that come into marketing, and it can be hard to track what's the return you're going to get in the first instance. Because growing a brand it takes time, and you're investing in that growth.
And it
but
feels
at the same
painful.
time,
yeah,
most businesses can't even afford to do that. They can't justify it. They don't have the cash flow. We've been fortunate enough to get investment. I've been able to throw a bunch of money at that and test it and try it. So then that's what we started doing. I think when we launched, we managed to get our first website up, and I was like, man, I need a website so we can start selling and I can start advertising and things. We started managing Facebook ourselves. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I was giving it a crack, and we're actually getting sales. I think and then COVID hit, and it stuffed everything. I had to lose all my farmers markets, which was generating most of the revenue at the time. Supermarkets deleted us literally in every store. I think we're in about 100 stores at that point. We just got deleted. That was it. They just didn't order for about 3 months. We were just like, flop, okay, we've got $0 coming in. At that point, we had about 10 staff, these huge costs, and we couldn't pay any of the bills. It was a nightmare. And I was like, we have to move the dial quickly. How can we bring some fast sales in? And so it was really fortunate at the time that the New Zealand Made Products page had gone nuts. Choice now. And so we posted something on that. I did 70 grand in under a week online orders. We had about 1,000 orders.
It was crazy. Like, I have clients I have one client who did her entire previous year's income in 6 weeks.
I believe it. I believe it, because everyone was so engaged on that platform at that time. But what that did was it made me realize the potential. It's like, okay, if we can get the right customers on board and get people supporting our company and really understanding what we're trying to do and giving them a lovely product that they we know that when people try the product, they generally love it. They come back. It's
delicious.
So 50% of our customer base, when they get to the website, 50% of them will come back and purchase again, which is fantastic. And we're trying to maintain that as much as possible. And to do that, there's email strategy, there's SMS, there's good content, there's communicating, running campaigns, Facebook ads, Google, but it just goes on and on. So that's kind of been my life over the last 2 years, is producing content and operating all those moving costs and understanding that whole platform and that system, not just here in New Zealand, Australia, but also in the US, because the US piece is very different. No one knows what a Feijoa is over there.
No.
Or boysenberry even. And Gold Kiwifruit's about 24 down on the list of all fruits that they buy. It's not a very popular fruit in the US. In fact, zestberry It was one of the last places Zespri's gone to. It's a very hard market to crack. But they've done a great job, so we're kind of going on the back of their marketing in some ways in the US. But again, like, what do you get products to the US, and then what? Like, you've got a 3PL, so you've got to have a fulfillment center. You've got to find. So for us, it was like, okay, we need a fulfillment center. What state? Who's that?
Yes.
What state?
Like, where's it going to go? Which one's going to be our biggest state? Like, and there's like a lot of states to choose from.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the things. I know we're almost at a time, and I'm very wary of that. But because we do a bit of Facebook advertising for a few clients in that market. And one of the things I say is, in America, a small audience size for Facebook is 1 million people. So like, a lot of the training that they teach you for Facebook ads is based around that a small audience size is 1 million. In New Zealand, that's a 20% of our population. So we can't even use those strategies in New Zealand. But in America, it's like, you do like a refined audience, and it's still like 45 million people.
That's right.
And it's like, how is my money going to get to the right person?
It's trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, and states, you can do just one state and still trying to get it, working it through, so that it's just huge. Like, the concept for us, New Zealand, for this, it's just a mind-blowing thing. Like, not even forget the logistics, just look at, like, so you've got logistics, you've got marketing, you've got distribution, you've got your freight problems, you've got keeping everything stable. It's a huge thing.
Yeah. And I guess if I look back, we wouldn't have entered the market as quickly as we did. And I think we were just, again, we want to do things differently. We want to go direct. We want to break the system and test and try and do something different. So that's what we did. We went over there with the idea that, okay, and this is working with Beachhead Advisors through New Zealand Trade and Enterprise in the US.
And they're very good, aren't they? They can really help NZT.
Yeah, they can. They are really good. But again, it's very subjective because they're all specialists in one thing.
Yes.
And they don't always join together. So we're getting pulled in all these different directions. You've got to be doing this, you've got to be doing this, you've got to be doing this. And it's like, well, this is kind of contradicting what this other specialist has just told me today.
Which makes it hard.
So you've got to be a little bit careful. But I think we've invested a lot of money in marketing, a lot of money producing content, even though we've done a lot in-house, and we've been fortunate. I mean, Design Well, they've got their own graphic design team, they've got their own animation team. So we produce all the raw footage. I can give it to them. They do the last 20%, give back, and I implement it all. We've been working with 3 different agencies. One helping with media spend, because I was spending 7 hours a day trying to manage Facebook. I didn't have time for that. Yeah. So it was just trying to find, I didn't want a generalist. You need specialists.
You do, I agree.
Certain things, but that comes at a massive cost, and it's very hard to justify the ROI from that. So, but for us, we just had to start building something and get going, and it's largely collecting data. It's understanding, getting as much data as we could, and that was our approach in the US. Was we need data. We can do that direct to consumer to get that data. Really get mature our pixels on our websites and start pulling through this data across Google and Facebook. What we found when we first entered the US 18 months ago, one, we're in the wrong state. So the cost of logistics, it was number one. So for example, we set up in Memphis, because in Memphis, that's where FedEx is set up. And the reason for that is it's very central. It can get to any state within 4 days. It's pretty, temperature-wise, it's pretty stable. There does snow there, but it doesn't get too crazy hot there either. Yeah. So it made a lot of sense. State tax is really cheap there. Sales tax is cheap as well. So it's all, if you don't even get me on tax, it's a nightmare.
And they're all different. Every state's different.
Every state has their own sales tax.
Some don't have tax and some have heaps. Like, it's crazy.
You've got to have a US customer. Basically, you need a US office. So a Little Beauties US office to even trade in the US, which we don't have. And I'm sort of working on a bit of a grey area on how we're trading in the US at the moment. But the goal for us was, we need to be discovered. So we can do that by going direct to consumer, getting some sales on the board, and then that will drive people into bricks and mortar. So that was our focus. The problem with that model, one, was the location we were in. So we're finding that the bulk of the people who were buying our products was actually in California.
I was going to say, probably big California.
So and because of COVID, we're stuck to one port, which is LAX in California. So we're sending it to sending it to LA, and then
taking it to Memphis,
putting on a truck
to
for 5
LA.
days, get all the way to freaking Memphis, and then they pack it up and send it back to, and then it was taking 4 days to get to the customer, and then they were
so crazy.
It was taking too long. So we're like, this is not working. And then on top of that, our price point was really, really high because we were working on, well, we need this price to make this work, which is again the wrong approach. That if you gotta commit to 12 months of at a loss if you're going to enter any export market. So, and we hadn't taken that into consideration. So the price point was too high. We didn't have any social proof because I was only selling on Facebook. And the acquisition cost is a lot higher offshore as well.
And also, like, I know, like with Facebook ads, for example, like, you know, in America, we do not understand how they are so used to more marketing messages. Like, we're always about 3 or 4 years behind in New Zealand. So, you know, here, we don't want to see someone seeing an ad, for example, more than 5 times in a week. In America, you can go up to 10 times a week on a Facebook ad for it to be at that saturation point. Or, you know, here it's about, 15 to 22 times of points of contact to make a purchase. In America, it's plus that. So like it starts at 22. So like, it's really hard to understand. And the sheer amount of money you've got to pour into getting that point where they remember who you are is just crazy.
Oh, that's right. So, for example, I mean, it's a natural science because we know that roughly 80% of our customers are female, and of which 75% are purchasing on a mobile device. So, how do we get somebody to buy a product I've never heard of before at a really high price point within 30 seconds on a mobile device?
Pretty hard.
It sounds impossible almost, but that's the reality that we're dealing with. And so again, it's understanding the function of your site. You know, there's a science to make that happen on your website. So you have to have a good understanding of. So we're on our 3rd website build to make sure we can streamline that experience for the customer, and we think we've got there now, which is great. So we'll build a US site specifically just for the US, and because the messaging on Little Beauties, the name Little Beauties means nothing it could mean pretty little girl to someone.
It means nothing, right?
Whereas Kiwis know you little beauty, it's like a good Kiwi saying. And so there's some education there. They can't even pronounce Feijoa. They're like Feijoa. They're like they just can't, they just don't even know what it means. They're like, what is this thing? So it's been a real challenge. So we invested a lot of money. We were aiming for around 20,000 customers in the first 6 months online. We only achieved about 2,000, and so we quickly realized the state was wrong. Logistics was a nightmare, so I was like, we need to stop. So we stopped for 6 months. I came back. We improved the website with the right functionalities. I changed states. We changed whole logistics partners. So that was a really, really crucial point for anybody that's exporting. You need to have a really good local logistics partner. You need a really good local logistics partner at the other end in LA, so the freight forwarder, and you need a really good broker because the broker is what's going to help get through get your prior notice and all that stuff sorted through customs. And then on top of that, you need to be registered with the FTA, and you need to have a good process there because otherwise your product can get stuck in customs, and then it's
I can imagine.
It's buggered. So that took a long. I had to interview. I interviewed 13 different 3PLs in the US because what we needed was a 3PL that could prep for B2B, prep for Amazon, and also prep for direct to consumer, and also have temperature control storage. So I was almost trying to find a unicorn. So
it's huge.
I found 80% of that from a 3PL in LA, which is great now. They're only about 35 minutes from port. So we fly. I can't even need a container. I can't get a container, can't get a reefer. So we're forced to fly. And there's only one port in the whole US that's open, essentially, that we can get.
Which is LAX.
Which is LAX. So we're, in some ways, it's forced our hand to market in California. But and the other side of that is California is really expensive. It's sales tax is the highest, state tax is the highest. But there's a lot of wealth there as well, and there's a lot of expat New Zealanders. There's a lot of liberal people that
really like coming to New Zealand.
Like coming to New
Zealand. Yeah.
They love the sustainability aspect. They love that 100% natural and all that stuff. Yeah. So it still made a lot of sense. So that's what we did. And it's So, for example, last week I went and bought a freezer and gave it to my 3PL so they could store ice packs.
Oh,
because
amazing.
they've got all our stuff stored in just a room that with an air conditioner to keep it stable, and it's this sort of thing. So it's really granular and it's painful, and it's just, they're a day behind us.
Yes.
And so you've only got a 3-hour window, unless you want to get up at like 2 a.m. You've only got a 3 to 4 hour window every morning to sort of communicate with these guys, and everything's done through a Zoom call it's hard. It is really hard. So
now, we could literally talk about this all day, Tristan. This is so interesting, but I also know you've got a very busy day ahead. Can I ask you a question, just because obviously we've got all your export, and it's so interesting, and I think it's so good for people to hear that cost and dedication that you need to do it. If people are wanting to buy your product in New Zealand and in Australia, like, how would they do that? Is New Zealand, can they use your New Zealand site in Australia, or does it
So our New Zealand website covers New Zealand and Australia, and we offer free, if you spend $65, if you're in Australia, you get the free shipping, which, by the way, we cover. That costs us $40 for the shipping.
Yeah, so you're making a loss on that. Yeah,
money on every order going out to Australia, but for us, that's the important thing is to get a customer, and for them to try our products and to jump on board with us, because we just need cash. We don't need to make profit right now. Profit would be nice, but the reality is it's not going to happen, because
you're in the growth phase.
You're
in that brand awareness stage, so that people are doing that. So also that people start going, hey, I've actually got a deli down the road. I'm going to tell them to stock you. I've written one down that I'm going to tell you at the end of this, like after we finish.
Amazing. Yeah,
so that's it though, right? Like that is because then that all that product can go to one place and people can buy it from there. But you need you're basically creating a worldwide web of brand ambassadors by giving them product at a very valuable price for them to test, and you're trusting them with the goodness of your product.
Yeah, exactly. And we're always banked on how good our product is. We know that there's no one else on the planet right now crafting these products in this format. We're the only company in the world producing these Gold Kiwifruit slices, and the only company in the world doing a Feijoa in this format. There's plenty of people drying Gold Kiwifruit and into a slice, but just not in this format and to this quality. So we're all about quality. We focus heavily on nutrition. We test everything. All the fruit coming in, if it's not at the right bricks level, then we actually temper that fruit until it's right before we process it. So we go to every length possible, and we're also trying to change all our orchards over to organic, which is a lot of work, as you can imagine.
Huge amount of work. It's just it's that whole thing of, like, you can say spray free, but once you go to organic, there's a whole lot of other stuff you've got to say about it.
And it's twice as much work, but we think it's the right thing to do.
Long term.
But so the best way to find us is, and if you're in Australia, is to jump online at www.littlebeauties.kiwi.
Awesome.
And if anyone's listening in the US right now, we're littlebeautiesfruit.com. And otherwise, you could basically find us in a New World. We're in majority of New Worlds in the South Island. North Island's it's been a bit of a battle since
it
COVID.
Always is. South Island, North Island, always a battle.
And we've just launched in Costco in Australia this week, actually.
That's exciting.
So we've got I can show you, actually. I'll grab it. So you can see that it's basically a giant bag of our Gold Kiwifruit. So
a giant bag sounds amazing.
That's 200 gram. So there's probably 20, 30 odd Gold Kiwifruit equivalent in this.
That's great to add in a lunchbox for kids, or just to actually have if you're going away or tramping and things like that. Quite a
that's the size difference. But so we're really excited about that. We think that we really hope it goes well. It's just a trial at the moment. They've taken a couple of containers just to give it a go, and that's a big deal for us. So we're excited to see how that goes. But
that's awesome. That's awesome. So thank you so much for being a part of the show, Tristan. It's been amazing. I've really enjoyed this because it's shared some challenges and some things. Plus, it's just a really exciting story. So thank you so much for being part of it. And all the best. It's just going to be exciting to watch the progress.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited. We're pumped with. Even though it's incredibly stressful and sometimes it feels like we're going week by week, just to keep we've got 30 staff now and just try and keep the pay and everything else. So it's but hey, that's the journey we're on, and we're not doing this for money, we're doing this because we love doing it. So it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sorry for sort of jumping all around the show, and
My
You're looking at
podcasts
there,
always jump
something
around the
on
show.
that.
It's part of the secret's magic of it. It's my fault. It's because I distract you half the time because I want to go somewhere else. So do not worry. It was awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We work with a huge variety of people, and our businesses that we work with often have either very humble options of what they want to do, and others have worldwide domination in their minds. One of the reasons I love talking to Tristan today and talking about the journey of Little Beauties is it's a real reminder of what it actually costs for a business to take on different markets overseas and how hard that can be if you're creating and manufacturing. If you've got a business that you want to have and become known as a worldwide brand, or even just very well known in other countries, listening to this podcast, I hope, gave you an idea of some of the things you may need to be able to expect to do. For example, not necessarily having 100% ownership of it, or being able to invest and have money to invest in creating machinery and other systems, what teams you need to have. Of course, you don't need that for a successful business. You can have a business that stays smaller, and it's about making those conscious decisions around the size of your business, what you want to do and what you don't want to do to make that happen. I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of you over the years of how you're growing your business, and I hope this was serving as an inspiration to you. If you want to talk about this, please come along to Map It Marketing, our Facebook group. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please do remember to subscribe. And I would love it if you do like the podcast to please review it as well on your platform of choice. It helps other people trust it and listen to these podcasts too. Have a great week. If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.